Why some people feel lonely even around friends. Have you ever been surrounded by people you genuinely like? Laughing at the same jokes, sitting at the same table, being included in the conversation, and yet somehow feeling completely alone? It's a strange feeling, because loneliness is supposed to happen when nobody is around. But for some people, the loneliest moments happen in a crowded room. They can spend hours with friends, go home afterward, and still feel like nobody really knows them. And what's interesting is that many people who experience this don't talk about it. From the outside, they seem socially connected. Inside, something feels missing. And that feeling usually has less to do with how many people are around them, and more to do with how safe they feel being themselves. Because loneliness isn't always the absence of people. Sometimes it's the absence of genuine connection. And those two things are not the same. A lot of people learn very early in life that being accepted often requires adjustment. Maybe they learn to be agreeable. Maybe they learn to stay quiet. Maybe they learn to avoid saying things that might create conflict. Over time, these behaviors become automatic. They smile when they're uncomfortable. They say they're fine when they're not. They tell people what they think people want to hear. Not because they're fake, because somewhere along the way, their nervous system learned that belonging feels safer than honesty. And at first, that works. People like them. They're easy to get along with. They're rarely the source of problems. But there's a hidden cost. The more a person edits themselves to stay connected, the harder it becomes to feel genuinely seen. Because people can only connect with the version of you they're allowed to see. If your real thoughts, emotions, fears, and struggles stay hidden, then the connection may feel incomplete. An incomplete connection often feels surprisingly similar to loneliness. You can see this in small, everyday behaviors. Someone spends 10 minutes rewriting a text message before sending it. Not because the message is important, because they're carefully managing how they'll be perceived. Someone wants to disagree during a conversation, but decides not to. Someone feels hurt, but jokes instead. Someone wants to open up, but changes the subject at the last second. These moments seem small, but when they happen repeatedly, they create distance. Not physical distance, psychological distance. A quiet separation between what a person experiences internally and what they reveal externally. And the larger that gap becomes, the harder it is to feel understood. Because understanding requires access. People can't connect with experiences they never get to see. And here's something many people don't realize. Sometimes loneliness around friends isn't caused by rejection. It's caused by anticipation of rejection. Those are very different things. A person doesn't need to be excluded to feel disconnected. Sometimes they simply expect exclusion. Maybe they've been misunderstood before. Maybe they've felt judged in the past. Maybe vulnerability was met with criticism instead of support. So now their brain becomes protective. It scans for signs that opening up might be risky. And when the brain prioritizes safety, authenticity often gets pushed into the background. That's not weakness. It's protection. Protection is useful. But protection can become so effective that it starts blocking the very thing a person wants most: connection. And here's where it gets interesting. The real reason many people feel lonely around friends isn't because they're alone. It's because they're performing connection instead of experiencing it. From the outside, everything looks normal. They're present. They're engaged. They're participating. But internally, they're monitoring themselves the entire time. They're wondering how they're being perceived. They're filtering what they say. They're calculating reactions. They're managing impressions. And all of that mental effort creates distance. Because true connection requires presence. But self-monitoring pulls attention away from the moment. Part of the mind stays occupied with staying safe. And when safety becomes the priority, connection becomes secondary. This is why some of the most socially active people still feel lonely. Loneliness isn't always a numbers problem. It can be an authenticity problem. A person can have dozens of friends and still feel unseen. Not because nobody cares, but because nobody has been allowed close enough to see what's underneath. Another layer of this pattern involves identity. Over time, some people become known for a role: the listener, the responsible one, the strong one, the funny one.